So it's Chacha Sun here, and I'm going to talk to you about what I've done as a parent around talking about sex, sexual health, and intimacy with my kids, and also share some of my partner Gardner Smith's tips as well. It starts a lot earlier than you think. I remember that the first time I had to talk to my eldest daughter, and I say had to talk because I wasn't expecting that I would need to, was when she was 6. And that's because a parent called me up and said, okay, there was another girl who was in the car with, you know, the 6 girls all together, and she started talking to them about sex, and now I'm calling up all the mothers, and of course it's the mothers, to talk to the daughters about sex. And so I think, you know, 6 sounds young, but we are, I think, constantly surprised. I remember I've talked to a parent of an 8-year-old who said, wow, I haven't even done this yet. And you did it at age 6. So when we first started at age 6, it was with picture books. And those books are great because they explain anatomy, the proper anatomy. And then at around you know, ages 11, 12, right before they become, go into puberty, I think it's important to reinforce what they've learned at school in their health classes. Gardner and I do believe you need to bring up the topic kind of like on a yearly basis, at least, you know, just to reinforce, you know, anatomy, this is what intercourse is, this is what birth control is, you know, to ask, are you having sex? Are you engaging in intercourse? Here's what you need to do. Here's if mistakes happen, etc. And so I'd say that at age, you know, 11 or 12, you need to be reinforcing what they're learning, which is kind of abstract in health class. For girls, it often starts with talking about their periods. I started talking to my girls about their periods at around ages 10 or 11. Some girls these days are getting periods as young as 8 or 9. So that's an important fact. It's probably moving a little earlier and earlier now. I certainly know women myself personally who've had periods at age 9. So, and often your daughter's period will very much mirror your own. And mine was age 12, so I started around 10 or 11. And so it was talking about periods, you know, talking about sex, how having sex could lead to pregnancy, talking about, you know, ways to prevent pregnancy. And so, you know, our tips are to start at whatever age you think is appropriate, and keep in mind that it is getting younger. Have those conversations at least on a yearly basis. I think we also need to be talking about porn a lot more with both boys and girls, because the rate of porn watching has gotten to be sort of addictive proportions. You know, I have a friend who's a sex therapist who now is treating 90% of her clientele now consists of sex addiction, mainly related to porn in men, when 10 years ago her clientele consisted of couples in intimacy problems. So the world is changing really quickly, so we need to be talking about porn with kids a lot earlier. And then it's reinforcing, at least on a yearly basis, a touch base with your child about you know, anatomy, health. So health consists of, for example, sexually transmitted diseases, getting tested for sexually transmitted diseases. Also, yeast infections can be a big issue in both men and women. Porn can certainly lead to erectile dysfunction in young men and teenagers. And so while well, this sounds like a lot, it actually is a lot. So, you know, what we believe is that it's important to have this sort of baked into your conversations with your kids, you know, at least once a year. And if they're in a relationship, to talk openly about the relationship you know, and whether it's progressed to sex, and if it has, then, you know, how's it going in terms of, you know, birth control, STDs, etc. You know, our philosophy is to be very open about that, about these issues, not to treat them when they're younger as you would an adult, of course, but just to consistently bring them up so that when you're bringing them up in their teens, when they start to become sexually active, which is the most common period to become sexually active, they're not going, oh, you know, I don't want to have this conversation. They're just saying, this is another natural progression of the conversations I've had with my mom or dad since age 6. So I hope that gives you some insight into what I do, and I'd appreciate any suggestions as well.